6 Music.
From 12:30, Late Night Jukebox. Right now, 6 Music documentary.
This is purely my opinion, and I know me better than anybody else. I wrote that album when I was between the ages of 20 and 22 when I was on the dole in Manchester. You can only write like that when you're uninhibited and nobody's listening to your music. I couldn't sit and write now a song that pinched the riff from Get It On by T-Rex now, you know, after all these albums, because you just get laughed out of town, you know. But then it didn't matter, because who was going to hear it, you know, 6 guys down the boardwalk and the 5 people in the band. Still incidentally not been sued for that one.
Released in August 94, Definitely Maybe entered the charts at #1, selling 150,000 copies in the first 3 days on the shelves, making it the fastest selling debut album ever in the UK. Its success surprised everyone, including the band's own label, Tim Abbott.
Those first weeks, I can remember them. It was quite amazing just how we would get the sales figures in each day, and we were kind of looking at 80,000 per day sales.
The singles on it, we don't even need to talk about them. They're all modern classics, and it's got a great title. The inside shots of Liam on the scooter are fantastic. I like the bit of me on the cover, holding the world. He's got the whole world in his hands and all that.
That cover shot, including a photo of another of Noel's heroes, Burt Bacharach, was taken in Bonehead's front room. He's since moved, but still has plenty of memorabilia from the shoot.
Kept the fireplace, so the fireplace is in there now. The stained glass that was around the front window, I removed and I made into a door that leads from my dressing room into my bathroom. That's got the stained glass. The pink flamingo. Still got that. I stood in my kitchen. One of my kids knocked its head off one day, so I super glued it on, but I've got that. Brother-in-law's got the piano. What I could take, I've got.
It was a phenomenon, and that's a word you can't actually wrap around everything. It just went, it caught the imagination of the country.
Maybe I don't really want to know how your garden grows, 'cause I just want to fly. Lately, feel the pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone. Maybe I just wanna fly, wanna live but don't wanna die. Maybe I just wanna breathe. Maybe I just don't believe. Maybe you're the same as me. We see things I'll never see. You and I are gonna live forever. Maybe I don't really wanna know how your garden grows, 'cause I just wanna fly. Lately, did you ever feel the pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone? Maybe I will never be all the things that I wanna be. Now is not the time to cry.
One of the reasons for the album's success was the instant classic Live Forever. Noel regards it as the pivotal moment in his songwriting career, and one which put Oasis up there in the pantheon of great Manchester bands.
The Smiths and the Stone Roses, I mean, they're seminal bands. That's before you get to Joy Division and New Order, you know. So I believed, and I still believe, that we're up there with them easily. And I thought we were a really, really, really good band, and we deserved a record deal until the day that I wrote Live Forever. And then I thought, right, well, everybody better start giving me thanks and praise now, because I, in fact, rule. And that was the end of that. And from the minute that I wrote the last note of Live Forever, I had a lot of respect for the people in bands in Manchester, and I was like, well, you can all go and f*** yourselves, because none of you have ever done anything like that, ever. You know, and never since.
It was the song of the time, it was the song of the moment, because we actually felt we were indestructible. All these great bands were coming along. Here was a record which spoke volumes about what we actually felt. Live Forever, you know, you and I, we are going to live forever.
My favourite song that he's written is Live Forever. Just like the, you know, I like the idea of it. It's pretty real. I think it's a fact.
Fran Healy from Travis.
Live Forever was the first one that grabbed me. I remember sitting in the hall in the flat with the charts on the radio, with my tape in the stereo, waiting for it to come on, and it was counting down. I listened to it from 20 to 10, And it came on, and when it came on I was like, wow. I almost forgot to cue the tape up because it was like, God, it's daft that one song can sort of do that thing, but for me that was when I thought, God, they're going to be amazing.
Richard Ashcroft.
The first time I heard Live Forever, it was on the demo. I thought, this is special because it's got a lot of swagger and a lot of self-belief.
Daniela Suave.
You just shut your eyes and something like Live Forever was on and you just felt the happiest person in the world.
If you talk about debut albums, then to me there's the Stone Roses, the Lars, there's Nevermind the Bollocks, and there's Definitely Maybe. And the reason why Definitely Maybe stands up with that lot and against any other debut album is this: is Rock and Roll Star, Slide Away, Columbia, Married with Children, and Bring It On Down. And the reason why I picked them is because they weren't even the singles. I'm just glad that I wrote every note of it.
Definitely Maybe was important for two reasons. Firstly, it marked the end of drummer Tony McCarroll's time with the band. He left because, in Noel's words, it was crap. And secondly, it marked Oasis down as a great band. But despite having a #1 single with Some Might Say, they weren't yet front page news, in the tabloids at any rate. That happened after a feud with their Britpop rivals and perceived Southern students, Blur. Writer, broadcaster and Blur biographer Stuart McConey.
I think there's still quite a lot about the rivalry between Blur and Oasis that hasn't surfaced, as it were, the reasons for it, and some of it may never surface. I think quite a lot of it is quite personal. I know for a fact that within Blur's camp, what happened was when it was looking as if the two singles were going to come out reasonably close to each other, that Blur and Andy Ross at Food Records sat down and said, sod it, or words to that effect. If we're going to do this, if they want to have this kind of silly rivalry, let's do it properly and almost end it, as it were, by getting to the high watermark of it as quickly as we can. Let's go head to head and put our single out on the same day.
We subsequently found out that the singer from Blur was very, very close to Steve Sutherland, who was then the editor of the NME. And they decided between themselves that they were going to find out who was the biggest band in England. Steve Sutherland says to the singer out of Blur, move your single back, we'll sell a shitload of papers, you'll sell a shitload of singles. Creation came down to the studio and said, look, we think you should put your single back because we don't want to jeopardise the album, blah, 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 and this, that and the other. And we said, no, f*** it, you know, if they're going to start doing shit like that, then, you know, our single date was set, and that was the end of that.
There was some rather contrived rivalry based around the fact that Oasis were, you know, real northern, gritty, working class blokes, and Blur were somehow some affected art school people from the south, and it was a bit ridiculous, but I think to both bands' advantage to a certain extent it was whipped up.
It keeps me young when I get riled about it, when people remind me of what student w***ers are capable of, you know what I mean? And people who crave fame and people who crave success, because without Oasis, Blur and the NME are nothing.
It was on the news, it was in the newspapers. I mean, if you go back in time and put that in context, nothing had been talked about so much. Not even Manchester. Really had to go back almost as far as punk to find a certain type of music that was interesting enough to dominate not just the music press, but the tabloids.
If you can tell an Oasis from a Blur, you should be on tenterhooks this evening. The Battle of the Bands is reaching its climax. They both have new records out, and on Sunday afternoon, one will go to the top of the charts. Will it be Oasis from Manchester, or will it be Blur from London? What do you think?
It's left a bad taste in my mouth because music shouldn't be like that. You know, if Blur, and especially the singer, needs the exposure that much, you know, then he's welcome to it, you know, and he was welcome to his #1. And he was welcome to his 15 minutes of fame.
Perhaps now the most interesting thing about it all, apart from it being on news at 10, and you forget the hysteria that it created, the singles concerned, Country House and Roll With It, are by far and away the worst records either band ever did.
You know, we were just better than they were, and we were bigger than that newspaper.
The other irony is that although Blur won that particular battle, if you like, and that their single got to #1, it was a Pyrrhic victory, a very short-lived victory, because almost instantly Oasis overtook them in terms of selling albums.
The Blur Oasis spat helped propel the Manchester band to superstar status, and the album What's the Story Morning Glory, released 2 months after Roll With It reached number 2, confirmed their position. Not that Noel or Liam can remember that much about the sessions that went into making it.
This will be brief because no one remembers a fucking thing.
Morning Glory, went to Wales. Me and our kid weren't getting on, got in a load of trouble, recorded these songs. I heard Wonderwall for the first time. These are the things I can remember anyway.
Morning Glory was written about what it was like, you know, to have just become famous, and it was all, you know, arm in the air stuff, really.
It was just the best feeling. It was like, yeah, you know, it's happening.
That was the band on the rise. That was the band like, God, you know, come on, let's get in the studio and, well, hey, you know, and that sense of excitement, that real rush of energy. That's where Noel was at that time.
Yeah, it was great. We lived in at my mum's. It was fantastic, man. And I was in this band. It was top. I didn't even have an house. I had money to buy an house, but I just thought, I'll stay here for a bit, man. I didn't want to live on my own. Couldn't be bothered. We'd start getting a few quid then, so we were out on the raz every night, and I was having it, and it was great. I weren't married. I weren't, you know, seeing anyone. It was just great.
You know, we were doing a song a day. I think we were only there for 16 days or something. We had a massive, massive fight in the middle of it, but I smashed Liam up with a cricket bat one night. He was getting on my tits.
Me and our kid had a fight because I invited loads of people back to the studio one night, and he wasn't up for it. Or I think he was working or something. And he's come down and threw everyone out, so sort of got the arse with him. We've had a little fight.
How many special people change? How many lives are living strange? Where were you while we were getting high? Slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball. Where were you while we were getting high? Someday you will find me caught beneath the landslide in a champagne supernova in the sky. Someday you will find me caught beneath the landslide in a champagne supernova, a champagne supernova in the sky.
Once again, the songs on the album were all Noel's work.
I remember playing the band the songs, and Bono started crying in the middle of Champagne Supernova, the woman.
Yeah, I believed in what Noel wrote, you know, and what we played.
To hear Champagne Supernova for the first time, that song was everything you thought this band might be, and in that song they'd crystallised it, you know.
How many special people change? How many lives are living strange? Where were you while we were getting high? Slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball. Where were you while we were getting high? Someday you will find me caught beneath the landslide in a champagne supernova in the sky. Someday you will find me caught beneath the landslide in a champagne supernova, a champagne supernova. 'Cause people believe that they're gonna get away from the sun. But you and I know the time, the world still spinning round, we don't know
The third single lifted from the album was a tune called Wonderwall.
I'm not too sure why the drum beat of Wonderwall comes in on the backbeat, although I do remember there being an argument about it.
Wonderwall I thought was a load of thought it was dub, reggae, weird, jazz. Ugh. I thought, what's that? I thought, ugh, that's horrible.
The meaning of that song was taken away from me by the media, who jumped on it and said, it's about Meg, innit? And I was like, well, how'd you tell your missus that it's not about her once she's read it is, you know? So that went on, and it's a song about an imaginary friend who's going to come and save you from yourself.
Wonderwall was a phenomenon, despite never actually getting to number 1. Thanks a bunch, Robson and Jerome. There was such an appetite for the song that 6 weeks later, another, slightly different version was released. Mike Flowers, leader of the Mike Flowers Pops.
The fact that there was two versions of the same song in the charts at the same time was just fortuitous, really. I never suspected that by covering that particular song we'd be tapping into such a large phenomenon, and that the song Wonderwall would subsequently be regarded as the song of the decade.
I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you.
Wonderwall put the seal on it. Oasis were officially the biggest band in Britain. But the lads, natural optimists one and all, were expecting it to end at any minute. Guitarist Bonehead.
And after something like Definitely Maybe, and then you're waiting for a backlash, or I was, it's like, is it going to happen here? Check out the sales, check out the gigs. We went out to tour that record. I think the kids spoke for themselves on that.
One of the reasons almost for their success was the vocabulary which Noel Gallagher used, and he was just brilliant at writing songs which were very, very touching and moving to a lot of people, because he spoke in vocabulary which was I, us, me, you. It's talking about basically a gang mentality, I suppose, and that's what to a certain extent Britpop was about.
What we were doing was influential. It's what the world needed, I thought.
You're my wonder wall.
More precisely, the world needed 13 million copies of Morning Glory. Britain in particular still couldn't seem to get enough, sending the next single straight to #1 and making it an instant Oasis classic and the ultimate sing-along in the band's repertoire. Noel.
I remember writing that in France, and I was singing something in the chorus, and it was So Something Can Wait, and I can't remember what the word was, but the word must have sounded like Sally, because Liam come up and said, "Who's Sally? And what are you talking about?" And he said, "In the song, So Sally Can Wait." And I went, "Brilliant, that's what it is." Liam's credited with that.
'Cause you said the brains I had went to my head. Step outside, summertime's in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace, take that look from off your face.
And when he gets to the chorus of "Don't Look Back in Anger," you've got 60, 70, 100,000 people from all races, you know, and they all stick their fist in the air and they sing that first chorus. It takes my breath away. I've been to see other bands and the singer just carries on like he's singing in his rehearsal room. And the difference is, you see, I'm not a professional musician. I consider myself to be an ordinary human being who writes these songs that people relate to. Other than that, you know, I'm no different to you. I'm no different to the people who are stood in the field listening to me play them songs. So if I wasn't in the band, I'd be in the field, because everybody in there looks like me. They dress like me, you know, and I dress like them. I'm just very lucky, I think.
And as Noel kept writing these songs, the gang started getting bigger, but everyone could sing them. There was a point when the second album came out where you could not go out without hearing one of Oasis's tunes coming out of a jukebox. Wherever you were, that's where you knew they'd made it. Everywhere you went, they were omnipresent.
you say? It's not today.
1996 was the year of the big Oasis gig. It started in April with 2 sellout shows at Main Road, home of the band's beloved Manchester City, followed by 2 more at Loch Lomond. But the combined total of 160,000 fans over 4 nights was nothing compared to what happened next. Paolo Hewitt.
There was a definite major shift in the 90s, and I think it all came to a head at Nebworth, you know. It really was an amazing thing.
I remember going to the site 2 months before when I went there with the promoters and our manager, and I was saying how many people, and he said 125,000. We do 2 nights. And I remember sort of laughing and thinking, you're mad. And they were going, what do you think? And I was saying, well, if you're telling me that you can stick 250,000 people in here, then we'll do it, man, because, you know, and they were saying they're going to be the biggest ever gigs ever in England by any band. That's as big as it gets. This is it. And we were like, yeah, right. Well, let's do it.
This is history. This is history. Right here, right now. This is history. I thought it was Nebworth. Hello. We're all going to history for the weekend to watch Oasis.
For the band's manager Marcus Russell, Nebworth was a simple choice.
The decision to do Nebworth came about because we were being pulled abroad an awful lot. We knew the demand for the band in England was just enormous to go and see them live, and we'd have to play for 6 months to satisfy the demand, so we decided to try and at least meet some of the demand by playing a huge open-air show.
Even other pop stars were impressed. Dougie from Travis and first Damon from Ocean Colour Scene.
Nebworth was just like one of the most famous gigs in UK history of rock and roll. I just remember Liam going about in a little golf cart backstage, just shouting mad for it, about 4 hours before they were on stage.
It was the event, you know, and it was just the matter of being there and just kind of being able, almost like just being able to say you were there. If you're like kind of anywhere near the back, you're like, that could be anything, you know. But it was a brilliant, kind of exciting day. You know, I can't imagine what it was like for them.
They rocked it. It was great. Really, really good.
Hey, oh, you lot at the back. We can't see you, but we know you're there. Supersonic!
Nebworth can't remember a thing about it, and that's the gospel too. Although I must have come off there at one point and gone, fucking hell, you know what I mean? Because you'd be mad not to. I must have thought that was great.
The actual gig itself is a real blur, if I can say that word. You know what I mean? I remember John Squire coming on with doing Champagne Super Roller. It's just like, keep going, let's keep going. This is amazing. Personally, I think we should have walked off stage after that, the second gig, and just went, thank you, good night. You know, beyond my wildest dreams, we should have called it a day.
As a purist, I really, really would have loved it if Oasis had finished the last number on the last night in Nebworth and went, thank you, that's it. Because it would have left such a legacy, you know.
This is called a master plan. So you can dance if you want to dance.
It was all like-minded people. It was the working classes. And we'd taken it as far as it could go. It could not get any bigger.
I don't think it's any coincidence that a magazine like Loaded took off at the same time as Oasis. There was a definite switch around in terms of, you know, men and what was called lads. And the term lad does denote someone without any intelligence. Well, you don't get to play to 250,000 people without a brain cell in your head.
What was the point of being nervous, you know? There was 250,000 people there. Apparently 3 million people applied for tickets, if you can get your head around that. That was big. That was big.
Some sense of what you want to say, and cast your words away upon the waves. Sail them home with acquiesce on a ship of hope today, and as they land upon the shore, tell them not to fear no more. Say it loud and sing it proud today. Dance if you want to dance, please brother, take a chance. You know they're gonna go.
any of you are listening that you were there, you know, I'm as proud to have been there as you should have been proud to be there. Do you know what I mean? Because you were at something that defined the 90s, it defined that culture, you know, the generation that fucking had it.
6 Music. From 3, 6 Music documentary.